All right, we have some big breaking news out of the WNBA, where Indiana Fever star Caitlin Clark is going to be sidelined for at least 2 weeks. The All-Star
Mike Fullis has emerged, proving how Caitlin Clark got hurt this 2025 season. Guys,
the recently released video demonstrates why Caitlin Clark is officially on the injured reserve list that we are discussing intentional collision, methodical targeting, and referees ignoring what can only be characterized as coordinated attack. The WNBA's handling of its top star is going to be exposed by the devastating evidence. What punishment do you believe players and officials who permitted this targeting to go unchecked deserve?
Behind the scenes. So pretty much the only information that we have so far about the injury itself is from Chloe Peterson. And she said Caitlin Clark's left quad strain is a new injury, I'm told. It is not related to her left quad.
Let's be clear about one thing. There is more to Caitlin Clark's quad injury than a freak event or normal wear and tear. This is the unavoidable outcome of over 2 years of unbridled hostility, which the WNBA has not only disregarded, but also apparently encouraged by its utter inability to safeguard their most important athlete. To be honest, it's uncomfortable to see the tape we're going to dissect. A pattern of behavior that extends far beyond competitive basketball is being observed. The league's silence has been deafening, and this is targeted harassment masquerading as defense.
I don't know when it happened. I know afterwards, we got a message that she had something going on with her leg, and they were getting an MRI, and then we got the alert yesterday.
Was it after the Liberty game on Saturday?
Is that her last game?
Yeah.
Yes.
The Atlanta Dream. Game where it all went wrong. The most damning evidence comes from that recent Atlanta Dream matchup. There was something far darker going on the court, as everyone was preoccupied with the animosity of the fans and the "you're in Atlanta" opportunity. A frame-by-frame examination shows a concerted attempt to physically subdue Clark that defies any plausible basketball classification. Pay close attention to the video. Pay close attention. During transition plays, you'll witness hands clutching jerseys, pointless contact on screens, and what are essentially wrestling moves masquerading as basketball defense. The Dream players had no intention of stealing the ball. Through repeated contact, they were attempting to deteriorate Clark's body. The defensive strategy used by Ryan Howard was especially heinous, making contact on almost every possession, providing continuous pressure during inbound plays, and standing awkwardly close for free throws. Elite defense is not what this is. This kind of persistent harassment is intended to physically exhaust and irritate an opponent. This is where things start to become very interesting, though. This entire matter is further complicated by Brittany Gurrier's involvement, that we are discussing a player who has a considerable edge in size and strength, making needless physical contact with someone who is perhaps 40 pounds lighter than her. In times where basketball basics would require backing off, Gurrier is shown in the video using her body to make contact. The coaching reaction that was not discussed. This is something that went absolutely unnoticed. It wasn't a calculated move on Stephanie White's part to remove Clark from ball handling responsibilities. It's becoming abundantly evident from the time frame that White was aware of Clark's physical problems long before the formal injury report was made. Consider it rationally. The role of your franchise player is not abruptly altered. Unless anything is very awry, your main playmaker and top scorer, White, witnessed what we are all currently witnessing in slow motion. The authorities were not offering any protection, and her top player was being singled out on a regular basis. It now seems completely absurd that White was criticized for those coaching choices. While the league saw its golden goose beaten down possession after possession, she was working to protect Clark's health. By reducing Clark's ball handling duties, White most likely prevented an even more serious injury. Although White blamed Clark's injury on the New York Liberty game during that pivotal period, the evidence particularly indicates that this was only the point at which an already compromised player reached her breaking point. Prior to the injury, Clark's shooting percentage had been dropping over a number of games, which made perfect sense given the cumulative physical toll. Professional players don't abruptly lose their shooting ability for no apparent reason. It wasn't bad practice habits or mental errors that caused Clark's mechanics to go wrong. Her body was disintegrating from prolonged contact, something officials ought to have seen weeks earlier. Because it was the most recent game, the Liberty game was used as the scapegoat, but anyone watching could see that Clark's movement habits changed throughout several games. She was plainly struggling with discomfort that hindered her performance, shielding herself, and changing how she approached touch. Complete failure on the part of the officials. The elephant in the room needs to be addressed. This targeting has been made possible by the referee's complete complicity. We are not discussing having different strike zones or missing a few close calls. We are discussing a systemic failure to provide protection for the player who was obviously being singled out for excessive physical contact. The video shows one uncalled foul after another. In men's basketball, or even other women's games, grabs, holds, pushes, and needless contact would have been reported right away. But the bureaucrats abruptly became selectively blind when it came to Clark. This has nothing to do with superstar calls or special treatment. This relates to both preserving the game's integrity and fundamental player safety. Officials are effectively offering other teams a blueprint for neutralizing talent through intimidation rather than skill when they permit one player to be continuously targeted without repercussions. The more troubling aspect of this case is how it fits into a larger pattern of treatment that Clark has experienced since joining the league. Do you recall last season's Kennedy Carter incident? The blatant fouls that were somehow accepted as typical basketball plays. Continuous physical contact that, for whatever reason, never led to technical fouls for unsportsmanlike behavior. These are not isolated cases. Several teams and players are working together to physically scare Clark out of her element. In reaction, the league has just shrugged their shoulders and said, "This is just playoff intensity or welcome to professional basketball." However, let's be honest about what we are truly witnessing. Yes, contact is a part of professional basketball, but it doesn't involve the kind of persistent targeting we've seen. NBA players are subject to physical defense, but when that defense verges on assault, officials provide them with additional safety. Professional athletes are trained to play despite discomfort and contact, but the deliberate targeting that Clark has seen differs from typical game contact. In recent games, her body language suggested that she was defending herself rather than playing aggressively, which explains the decline in performance that made some fans doubt her skills. Ironically, Clark's deteriorating performance was used by her detractors as proof that she was overrated, but in actuality, it was proof that the targeting campaign was having the desired effect. Instead of using her exceptional basketball skills, teams managed to neutralize her talent by persistent physical intimidation, which authorities chose to ignore. The WNBA spent a lot of money promoting itself around Clark's star power and ability to bring crowds. But when it came time to actually safeguard their investment, they failed miserably. This was made clear by the league's duplicity. You cannot base your marketing strategy on a player and then permit that person to be singled out repeatedly with no repercussions. This reveals a basic hypocrisy in the league's operations. They want the advantages of having a transcendent talent like Clark, such as higher ticket sales, media attention, and viewership, but they are unwilling to take the tough choices required to keep her safe from people who would prefer to use intimidation to get rid of her than to compete with her basketball prowess. It has been especially devastating that the league has remained silent about this targeting. There are no remarks regarding player safety, no admissions of missed calls, and no signs that they are even conscious of the issue. In response to Clark's injury, they essentially ignored the conditions that preceded this specific accident. What this implies for the future, whether the WNBA realizes it or not, Clark's injury marks a turning moment. Because they failed to shield her from systematic targeting, their most marketable player, their biggest attraction, and their main source of public attention is marginalized. Now that Clark isn't on the court, they can see how their product appears. The league will be solely responsible for the impending severe decline in attendance figures, broadcast ratings, and social media participation. Additionally, this injury creates a risky precedent for other gifted athletes joining the league. What message does the WNBA give to college students thinking about their professional possibilities if they won't shield their biggest star from clear targeting? Why put yourself in a league where skill can be neutralized by intimidation? The fan reaction to Clark's targeting has been very illuminating, rather than competitiveness or the fans' participation in this catastrophe. Many supporters have praised the aggressive play as defense or as forcing Clark to earn points rather than calling for improved officiating and acknowledging blatant fouls. In essence, this way of thinking has allowed teams to keep targeting. Social media campaigns have been overflowing with opinions regarding Clark's need to strengthen or adjust to physical play, utterly ignoring the fact that the challenges she faces extend far beyond traditional basketball. By refusing to realize what is truly taking place on the court, these fans have become participants in the targeting. The most annoying thing is hearing fans lament that the game lacks marketability and star power while also defending blatant fouls as sound defense. It is not possible to have it both ways. You either want gifted athletes to show off their abilities, or you want to use persistent physical abuse to scare them into mediocrity. Nobody is talking about the financial implications. This is what the WNBA is unwilling to admit. They will have to pay a lot of money because of Clark's injuries. There will soon be a sharp decline in Indiana Fever game ticket sales. Games without Clark will have much lower television ratings. When their biggest celebrity is sidelined, merchandise sales, social media engagement, and mainstream media coverage all suffer. By failing to give even the most basic protection, the league has effectively enabled their most precious asset to be harmed. From a business standpoint, this is the pinnacle of organizational malpractice. Maintaining ties with players and coaches who participate in targeting has taken precedence over safeguarding their major source of income. The WNBA is being confronted with a straightforward, fundamental question that will determine its future. Are they interested in becoming a recognized professional basketball league? Or do they want to carry on as some sort of physical intimidation competition in which expertise is neutralized by attack rather than superior basketball skills? This question is compelled by Clark's injury since it highlights every flaw in the league's operations. The promotion of intimidation above basketball talent, the failure to safeguard elite players, the targeting, and the missed calls. When your biggest star is placed on the injured reserve list due to officials' refusal to perform their duties, it all becomes clear. Whether the league has any credibility going forward will depend on how they handle this circumstance. They will no longer be able to claim to be a legitimate professional sports organization if they keep acting as though systematic targeting is standard basketball. They may be able to regain some credibility if they eventually admit the issue and take action to solve it. However, don't hold your breath for any significant adjustments based on their response thus far. Instead of acknowledging that they have a significant issue with refereeing and player conduct, the WNBA appears to be quite satisfied, allowing their most recognizable star to be targeted out of the league.